Happy Monday morning, everybody. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. As y'all are coming in, shout yourselves out. Tell me your locations in the comment section. Like the live you're watching on TikTok. We are live on Rumble Studio. Good morning. Live on YouTube. Good morning. Let me check and make sure we are good over on X. I see the live shot. And yes, we are live on X. Good morning, X. We are live on Facebook. Good morning. And we are good over on LinkedIn. We are live on Instagram. Good morning, Instagram. And live on TikTok. Like the live y'all watching on TikTok. Today's topic, we are talking the crime crackdown that President Donald Trump is saying he is going to initiate in the city of Washington, D.C. As he said, there's been a lot of stuff going on in D.C. as far as the crime. Let me see if I can find the actual post of what he said. His post from Truth Social. What he said on crime. Let me see if I can find it. So Trump, am I even following this account? Andre Trump post from Truth Social. No, he says so many things that I don't know if I can find it. So we got the New York Times. We got something about soybeans. He's mentioning China a couple times. Cracker Barrel. Crime and beautification. Is this the DC one? No, that's not it. This is. So he said, one of the things he said, we're having a news conference tomorrow in the White House. He said this on the 10th, which was yesterday, about 24 hours ago. We're having a news conference tomorrow in the White House. I'm going to make our capital safer, more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless had to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring in to zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's what he said about the DC situation. And I don't think he's lying. But let me shout a couple people out. Let me shout some people out in the comments. Tell me where you are checking in from. Tell me your location where you are checking in from. Shout some people out, and then we'll get into what we need to get into here. And the topic again is Donald Trump saying he is going to crack down on the crime in D.C. that he believes has gone overboard. So as y'all are coming in, shout yourselves out in the comment section. Tell me your locations. Marky Man, good morning over on TikTok. Nikki, good morning. Nikki checking in from Connecticut. Shout out to Connecticut. Lacey River from Vancouver, Washington. Shout out to Vancouver, Washington. Where are we? Vancouver, Washington. Rose Campbell from New Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. AU Hunter from Las Vegas. Shout out to Vegas. XTR Winters, California. Murphy DeMutt, Bristol, Tennessee. Dwayne Mitchell, Detroit in the house. Carla, Indiana. Good morning. And so the topic here today, again, we got Warner Robins, GA, key to B. Warner Robins, GA. That's a town I have not heard of. Shout out to Warner Robins. And what we're going to talk about here today is what Trump is claiming he wants to do in D.C. to clean up what he sees as excess criminal activity. Let me get my fan pointed properly here. In Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital. So Xavier says to take over legal in D.C. Sorry, I just saw your live. Well, we'll see. That's what we're going to talk about. So he's talked about the homelessness. So President Donald Trump, this is what he is saying, basically. I'm going to give you the basics of it, then we'll get into some points. He has announced a new crime reduction plan specifically targeting violent crime in Washington, D.C. with the White House press conference to roll it out. That's supposed to happen today. So he's ordering a surge of federal law enforcement to patrol alongside local police after this attempted carjacking incident. Did y'all see this or hear about this attempted carjacking that happened last week? After that, I guess that got his attention, and now he wants to do something about the crime happening in the nation's capital. Please keep liking a lot of those of you watching on TikTok. So federal data says violent crime in D.C. This is what federal data says. The violent crime in D.C. is at a 30-year low, which raises questions about the real motivation and the real timing. And this plan brings both political and practical considerations to the table, from public safety optics to federal-local cooperation dynamics. So there's several things to be mentioned just in that introduction of what I'm giving you here. Is that, first of all, what happened is the optics. The optics are a big deal in politics, and I talked about this with you all a lot. That optics are the game of politics. Please keep liking and live as you're watching on TikTok. The optics are, how does something look? Because how it looks is more important than the actual facts and the actual truth. In case any of you didn't know that, that's how it is anytime you work in a bureaucracy. So you work in the government, it's all about optics. If you work in a corporation, it's all about optics. If you work in anything that is controlled by the government or a corporation, it is all about, you guessed it, optics. Everything is optics. The reason why diversity, equity, and inclusion policies happen in companies is not because companies said, hey, how about we just bring in more gay people that's going to help us do better business? Or how about we fight for or claim that we're fighting for everyone to be equitable in some way that's going to help us serve our customers better? Or how about we got a bunch of white people, let's bring in some black people? Or we got a bunch of men, let's bring in women. We got a bunch of heterosexual people, let's bring in homosexual people. Let's do that, and that's going to help us do better business or better serve our customers. It's going to help the world be a better place. That's not the reason why those policies came into play. They came into play because of optics. The optics were what the situation was, whatever it was. Then when the whole concept started to gain steam and the government started to push behind it and people started to push behind it, the company said, okay, if we're on the wrong side, quote unquote, wrong side of this conversation, optically, we're going to look bad and it's going to hurt us in business because we look bad, not because we're doing bad business, but because we look bad. So they had to capitulate and they had to follow it. And now that the optics say you don't have to do it anymore, now nobody's doing it. This is the thing that you got to accept if you decide to get involved in bureaucratic or corporation, and corporations are bureaucratic. You get involved in corporation situations, you have to deal with optics. Everything is about how does it look, not about what's actually true. For example, 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, everybody saw the viral video of the police officer we came to know as Derek Chauvin kneeling on the body of Mr. George Floyd. And I remember when that video came out, I was doing a live stream that day, like 5 in the evening, and people were asking me my opinion of it. And I said, number one, we got to get more information. You never have all the information up front, but it doesn't matter for most people. Most people immediately react to what they see, even if what they see is merely a snippet of what is the actual truth. Everybody started reacting to that video as soon as we saw it. Remember when that George Floyd video came out? It was like 2 minutes long, and all you saw was the cop kneeling on top of the man, and he's on the ground, and he's saying, "Mama, mama, I can't breathe." And then the next thing you see is his body being carried off in an ambulance, and you found out that he was passed away, and everybody went crazy. Was that the whole story? No. Was that the whole truth? No. Was that all the facts? Also no. But did everybody react immediately as soon as they saw that? The answer is, of course, they did. Everything's about optics. And when that video came out, I said, number one, we don't have all the information. But number two, it doesn't look bad for that cop. And it doesn't look bad for the cops, period. It doesn't look bad for cops, period. They're all going to get demonized because of this video, this incident. And that cop is in trouble, even if whatever he was doing that led to him kneeling on that man, he's going to, even if the facts back up him kneeling on that man, the fact that that video came out and it looks the way that it looks, he's in trouble. And we can see Mr. Chauvin's in prison. I think he got 20 plus years, not necessarily because of the facts. That's a whole different conversation, which we've had already. You can find the replays on my YouTube channel. It's because of the optics, because of the way it looked. Somebody had to pay a price for that. He paid the price. Other officers got time as well because of how it looked. When it comes to this situation here in D.C., Donald Trump decided to pay attention to some crime happening in D.C. I mean, crime happens everywhere, every day. Some places more than others. But because he decided to pay attention to it, because it was something that kind of became a national story. I don't know if y'all even saw the video of the carjacking or the attempted carjacking that was happening in, let me see. There's a carjacking in D.C., but this carjackings happen every day, everywhere. So there was this guy. So this is the ex-Doge staffer, Doge being the Department of Government Efficiency. Y'all remember those guys, Elon Musk and company. So this guy got a nickname called Big Balls. They start calling him Big Balls because he got bloodied after 10 juveniles tried to carjack. They were trying to carjack a car. He jumps in and fights them, and he gets carjacked. And this is what he ended up looking like. This guy who used to work at Doge. He's in DC. He sees a carjacking. He goes to try to stop it. He's fighting against 10 people, and this happens. So this is that guy. Now, what Donald Trump said a few days ago, this is about 5 days ago, he said, crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths, and Trump often puts words in quotation marks for no reason, local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens at the same time knowing that they will be almost immediately released. In other words, they're getting arrested, but then they're getting let out anyway, even though they just got caught doing a crime. This is what he's saying. They are not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them, but it's going to happen now! Exclamation point. The law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors, again in quotation marks, as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. So in other words, he's saying instead of prosecuting a 14-year-old as a minor, they need to be started to be prosecuted as an adult. He's saying this as a broad-based point. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Again, this is Trump's words. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans, and importantly for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together, and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run, and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with this incredible young man and so many others not get away with it anymore. Perhaps it should have been done a long time ago. Then this incredible young man and so many others would not have had to go through the horrors of violent crime. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and, all capitalized, federalize this city. And then, of course, make America great again in all capital letters. So Donald Trump basically took advantage of the headline of this kid getting bloodied while fighting against carjackers. And he used this as a pretext as to why he believes federal control over Washington, D.C. when it comes to law enforcement needs to happen. Again, this just happened about 5 days ago after this attempted carjacking was stopped by or intervened with by this guy. Let's see if I can find the actual video. The video is out there, but I can't play it because TikTok has warned me about playing content from other people's stuff. So this is what Donald Trump has said. First thing I'm bringing up here is the optics. The optics of what happened to that guy, this ex-Doge staffer getting bloodied by some people who were trying to carjack somebody. That's the optics. And in politics, that's all you need. All you need is the vision of, or the image of somebody doing the wrong thing, even if it's like a once in a blue moon thing. That one time is enough to get everybody riled up. So anybody who is looking at Trump and saying, well, he's just using this as an excuse. Well, y'all remember what happened with George Floyd? How often does that happen? How often does it happen that a cop is kneeling on a guy who is allegedly, not apparently, but we know now was on some pharmaceuticals that he probably shouldn't have been taking. And he already had comorbidities, and he was already resisting being put into the cop car, and he asked to be laid on the ground. We know all these things happen. And then the cop kneels on him. He ends up passing away there on the spot. How often does that happen? That's a once in a blue moon thing. It's called a white swan event. Nassim Taleb calls it called a white swan event. It doesn't happen often, hardly ever happens. But the one time that it did happen, the image alone was enough to get everybody riled up, excited, and reactive. That's exactly how it goes. That's how optics work. That is how politics works. Donald Trump is just doing it. Same thing that every politician does. And because of those optics, he is taking advantage of something that he probably already had on his mind. Now, some are saying the DC area is saying, the police district is saying that federal data is telling them violent crime is at a 30-year low. Maybe that's true, maybe not. Here's the problem with crime being at a low. Have you ever seen the TV show The Wire? The police department have ways, if and when they want to make it look like crime is going up or to make it look like crime is going down. Usually they're incentivized to make it look like crime is going down. Or if they want somebody to look bad, they'll make it look like crime is going up. They can play with this. They call it juking the stats. And juking the stats is very easy to do if you work on the inside of an organization and you know how to fudge certain numbers to, again, make it look one way or make it look another way. People do this in accounting. They do it in education. People do it in corporations, and people do it in the police department. They do it all the time. They juke the stats. In other words, to make something look like one thing when it's actually another thing, you can not report or not track. Let's say if there's carjackings or if somebody got caught smoking marijuana, you can easily put that in the stats. You can easily not put it in the stats. The more stuff you put in the stats, it looks like there's a lot of crime happening. And the more stuff you don't put in the stats, it looks like less crime is happening. So when a city self-reports that crime is down, well, they're incentivized to tell you that crime is down because they want to look like they're doing a good job and they want to make their leaders look good. Now, does that mean that they're lying? No. Does it mean that they're telling the truth? Also, no. This is the thing that I've told you all. Facts don't matter. In the world that we live in today, this is already true 10, 20, 30 years ago, but it's more true now. Facts don't matter because we don't know if someone is giving us the actual facts. You never know. They can say that crime is down in the city. I just told you that it's very easy to juke stats when it comes to, let's say, something like crime. If you want to make it look like your mayor or your governor or your city council is doing a good job to fight crime, you can just have you send the word from the mayor down to the head of the police department. They send it down to their lieutenants and sergeants. Here's how we're going to report certain data. So it looks one way, and even though it's actually another way, and then it makes everybody look good and everybody can say, hey, crime is down, but the crime is still happening. It's just not being tracked the same way. Again, this happens in accounting all the time. You can very easily juke the stats. So we don't know if crime is down in DC. They say it's at a 30-year low. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. And some are saying, well, that is the reason why Trump's motivation might be something other than that. And he's just trying to fan the flames, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. Again, this is the reason why critical thinking is at a premium these days, because you have to think for yourself. You can't just go off what somebody else tells you or what information people put out there, because people can easily give you the information that they want you to know and ignore the information that they don't want you to know. So this plan is bringing in both political and practical considerations, assuming that there is actually a crime issue. And listen, if somebody's getting carjacked and somebody ends up getting beat up because some juveniles are running around doing carjackings, I mean, that is the thing. It's not like it didn't happen. Same way with the George Floyd thing. I mean, even if it's a white swan event, even if it's something that happens once in a blue moon, that once in a blue moon might be one time too many, which is what a lot of people had to say about that situation. It's the same thing in this situation. And this one happens, carjackings happen a lot more often. So this is all an optics game. Donald Trump is a politician. Donald Trump is a person who's worked within and run bureaucracies of his own for 40 years. The guy understands optics. He understands headlines. He understands controlling the news cycle. This is his job. This is what he's supposed to do. This is his business. This is what he's about. So if you got a problem with this, you got to have a problem with everybody doing it, because every politician is actively engaged in controlling the news cycle and controlling headlines. Donald Trump seems to have more power. Actually, he does have more power doing it simply because so many people are so emotionally reactive to Donald Trump. People were not emotionally reactive to Biden or Obama or George W. Bush or Bill Clinton. They were responsive, but they weren't reactive. People are reactive to Trump. So everything he says and does, everybody has something to say. Case in point, me talking about it right here, and you all listen to it because he's the one involved. If somebody else was saying this wouldn't even be a news story. So let me introduce myself first. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is we created a system that takes the tools to help athletes reach the top 2% in the sports world. And we have systematized those tools, translated them over to the performance, discipline, and accountability world for entrepreneurs, business teams, and high-level professionals. Anyone who has a mandate to perform at a super high level, we're your people to help you out. Again, taking what works in sports and translating it directly to the business and the professional world. So if that sounds like you, click the link in my profile and you can learn more about working with me and all the different ways that you can engage. So what I do here, for those you don't know, is I will give you the content, which I'm doing right now, usually go about 45 minutes, but I started actually about 20 minutes late here today. So I probably won't go any more than 15 more minutes or so when it comes to the content. And then we will open the floor up for the conversation, which is when I will read and respond to your comments live on the spot. So any of you thinks that this is AI, this is not AI. I will actually read and respond to your comments, even the ones who disagree with me, even the negative comments, as long as you're not trolling and being dumb. And I will address those as well. So you'll get to see me do that in about 15 minutes. So let's get maybe less. Let's get into this. So federal backup. What Trump is basically proposing is that the local cops in DC still do their job. The issue is, if you ever seen a TV show like The Wire, for example, I don't really watch TV, I don't watch TV at all anymore, but back in the day, I did watch The Wire. On that show, you notice that one of the biggest problems for when you're working in the government is often the budget. Biggest problem usually is the budget. Any person who works within any type of government entity, you ask them, what are all the things you want to get done and you want to achieve? They'll tell you. And then they'll probably follow that up by telling you why they can't do it. One of the main reasons that they can't do it is either bureaucratic red tape, i.e., I want to do this, but I got to go through these 6 people and get approvals from all 6 in order to do it. And I can't get the approvals, so I can't do it. Or B, actually usually connected to A, is that the money isn't there. So even though these 6 people want to approve what I want to do, there's not enough money for me to actually do it. So even if they said yes, where's the money coming from? We ain't got it because the government just has a limited amount of money. So a lot of times there's no money to get these things done. So when it comes to the local police in DC, it's not that the police it's not that they don't want to stop crime. It's not that they want crime to just happen. Is that they don't have enough resources to fight crime the way they want to fight crime. They don't have enough officers. They can't be in everywhere at all times. They can't have a cop on every corner. There are not enough cops. There's not enough money to pay all those cops. Even if they did have enough cops, they can't do it. So what Donald Trump is saying without actually saying it is that he wants to send, actually he kind of did say this, he wants to send in federal authorities, people who are employed by the federal government, and he wants them working hand in hand with people who are employed by the local government. So local government is just your local cops. Federal authority are people who are working for the federal government, and they're going to go into DC and they're going to actually help the cops in DC. This is what he's claiming is going to happen. Now, is this actually going to happen this way? I highly doubt it, but he's putting the word out there that federal backup can help the local police cover more ground and respond faster in high crime areas. Now, theoretically, would that happen if he sent feds into, let's say Donald Trump deployed 1,000 federal agents or cops into Washington, D.C. to help police Washington, D.C.? Would that actually help them address more crime if you just have more bodies? The answer is yes, it would. Now, the pushback that some may have, well, that may lead to over-policing. This is what people say now, over-policing, which is people who feel like they're in areas where the cops are kind of looking for crime, where there is no crime, and it creates this tension between the police and the citizens, and then eventually it leads to things that get marked as crime, even though nobody was actually doing anything. There's a whole conversation around that. That one of the topics that often gets brought up with this was Rudy Giuliani in New York City when he came in the 90s and instituted a whole lot of broken window theory rules, stop and frisk, all these types of things to preventatively stop crime that wasn't technically happening, but he believed that if we do these things, we'll stop crime before it actually occurs. And did crime indeed go down in New York? Yes, it did. But there are still plenty of people who push back on the policies of what Giuliani was doing. So what Trump is saying, in theory, could it work? Yes. But are there pushbacks to that? Well, of course. On top of the fact that Donald Trump is saying it, there's always going to be a pushback. So what some are saying is that crime is already statistically low, as I just told you. It is self-reported by DC that crime is at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C. Do you believe that stat? I would say, I don't know. I never looked at the stats before, so I don't know. I had to see how they've been reporting it for the last 30 years. But they say the crime is already low. So if Donald Trump is doing this, then it might just be political theater, not an actual urgent need. I say it's a combination of both. It's both. Is it political theater for the president to say we're going to send federal authorities into a city to stop crime? Is that political theater just to announce it? Of course. At the same time, is political theater necessary if you're going to be a successful politician? The answer is also, of course. There's a reason why Bernie Sanders is on tour right now. Bernie Sanders is a senator who was elected to represent his people. And what is he doing right now? He's not in D.C. fighting for the people of the country. What is Bernie Sanders doing? He's touring around the country, giving speeches, pushing back against authoritative rule and oligarchy, basically people who got a whole bunch of money that seem to have a whole lot of power. That's what Bernie Sanders is doing right now. Why is Bernie Sanders doing that? He's doing it because it's political theater. What it does is it buys him political capital with his supporters and people who could possibly become his supporters. That gets him a bigger voice, a bigger name, more power and more influence through using his voice. And he can leverage that to get things done in DC that he wants to actually get done. So like I just said, it's a combination of theater, and Bernie Sanders is literally speaking in theaters. He's literally speaking in convention halls. So it's political theater on one hand that he's doing to make a show of his point. And at the same time, the more theater you do in politics, the more leverage and power and influence you have, because you can move the people, that's us, the voters, to feel a certain way and vote a certain way. And the main thing that politicians care about working in DC is keeping their jobs. That's the main thing they want to do, is keep their jobs. And to keep their jobs, they have to either do things that help the people who vote for them, or they got to make it look like they're doing things to help the people to vote for them. You either got to do it or you got to look like you're doing it. And if you fail at both, you lose. You get replaced by somebody else, and now your career in politics is over for the most part. Maybe you can come back. Now you got to go get a real job and do real work. So this is the reason why politicians do what they do. So Bernie Sanders is doing the same political theater that Barack Obama did, the same that Clinton did, the same that Kamala tried, the same that Hillary tried, the same that Trump does. They all do this. So this is not a partisan thing. This is not a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing. Trump did not invent this. And Trump probably not even the best at it. They all do it. All right, they all do this political theater. There's a reason why Miss Jasmine Crockett out of Texas is always on TV and making social media posts that she is attempting to get them to go viral, and she's just talking shit about President Trump and about the Republicans, and just doing it in this way that she's talking in a tone that there's not other politicians talking in, and leveraging her femaleness and leveraging the fact that she's black, and is getting a whole lot of attention. Why is she doing it? Is she doing it because what she says has actual substance? From what I see in here, the answer is no. There's no real substance in what she's saying. She's saying the same thing that everybody else is saying. She's just sensationalizing it. And she's making theater out of it, getting it on TV, getting it to go viral on social media. Why? Why does she care to do that? She does that because the theater builds up her name, her brand, her presence, which gives her more pull in DC and more pull with the everyday person who can't look beneath the surface of things. They just respond to what they see on the surface, which is social media content, for example, that may be with no substance whatsoever, but it's something that gets people excited. And that can help her win more votes. That can help her possibly go to somebody in DC and say, hey, I'm trying to get this done. And if you help me out, then I can say something positive about you on my next post on social media. And if you don't help me out, then I might say something negative about you on my next post. If she gets enough political clout, she can have that kind of power. You want to see someone who does have that kind of power right now, look at Donald Trump. All right, this is exactly what he does. When he gets a politician to agree with him and go along with what he wants, he will tout that politician and he'll help them win their next reelection. And if he doesn't like what a politician is doing, what does he do? He will get them primaried and he'll basically get them replaced by their opponent in the next election because he doesn't like them. He does this all the time. He's been doing it since his first time in office. And again, why are they all doing this? One thing you all should keep in mind, are they doing any of this because they're trying to help me and you? The answer is no. This is the reason why you should not trust the government. You should not depend on politicians for anything at all, because they're not in the game of doing anything for you. They're in the game of keeping their careers. And if they happen to do something for you in the process of keeping their positions and maintaining their careers, cool. If they do nothing for you, so what? It doesn't matter. Now, let me pause right here and remind all of you that I know you like what I'm saying, but please tap the screen and like the live on TikTok. We're at 17,000 likes. That is an anemic number of likes on TikTok. We should be at least 30,000 by right now. We need to get to 20K before I keep going. Tap the screen on TikTok. Let's get to 20,000 likes before I keep going. I don't have any intermission music, but this shouldn't take more than like 45 seconds for us to get to 20,000 likes. You tap the screen and the lights go up. So right now I can see this number right here. It says 18.8K. Now it's at 19. Let's get to 20,000 before I keep going. I don't want to have to pull the Kevin Samuels on y'all, but I will pull it every now and then just to remind you. I know y'all liking what I'm saying, but sometimes I got to pull it. Thank you, everybody, for getting the likes up. So those of you who don't know who Kevin Samuels is, he's a guy who used to do live streams. He passed away about 3 years ago, talking about relationships and such. And anytime he would notice he didn't like how many likes he had, he would stop talking. He would play the intermission music, and he wouldn't keep going until people liked the live. So I'm borrowing it from Kevin Samuels. Rest in peace, Kevin Samuels, for giving me the idea. So continuing where I'm at, please keep liking the live while I'm talking, folks. Keep liking the live while I'm talking. They say crime is already low, but again, they say this could be political theater rather than urgent need. Is it theater? Yes, it is. Is it an urgent need? It could be. It could be. But is this theater? Yes. Every politician must be involved in theater. Another thing all of you got to understand about politics in the United States of America is that this is a show. It's show business. The internet has only exacerbated this reality. Is that the show, whoever puts on the best show, is able to stay in, win, and continue doing business. A few weeks ago, I was doing a live stream just like this one, and I was asking the audience, name every person in Congress who you can name without Google. And everyone knows that right now they're about, maybe everybody doesn't know, there are about 535 active members of Congress right now, and I believe 6 non-voting members. So it brings it to about 541 people in Congress right now. 541 people in Congress right now making laws, passing bills that become laws that affect you. Out of that 541, this is about 3 weeks ago, I said, everybody who's in these comments, name a congressperson who you can name without Google. You know how many names we came up with total? Anybody want to guess a number? How many names did we come up with total? I was reading every single name that everybody mentioned. How many names did we come up with total? Names you can mention without Google. How many did we come up with? Anybody remember? So this is 3 weeks ago. I said, name a congressperson. We added up every name people come up with that I could recognize. How many did we come up with? Remind you, there are 541 members of Congress right now. The total number we came up with was 41. We came up with 41 people. Politically dubious. You came the closest. It was 41 names we came up with. And I was just looking at what everybody said. 41 total. So out of 540 people in Congress right now, all of us put together, it's not even one person. All of us put together can name 41. 41 people. It's about the same number of people in that live that it is right now in this live. 41 people. Which means, and the ones who we know, here's the thing y'all got to understand. The ones whose names we know, why do we know their names? We know their names because they're good at theater, not because they are experts at crafting bills that become laws, not because they've done anything extraordinary to help you, not because they care more about helping the everyday person than the other 500 members of Congress who we don't know. It's simply because they've done a good job of the show. They put on a good show. So the people we can name, you got the Bernie Sanders, you got the AOCs, you got the Jasmine Crockett's, you got the, who else? All these other people we can name, whoever they are. All right, all these people, the reason, the Hakeem Jeffries, the Cory Bookers, why do we know these people's names? We know their names because they're very good at the theatrics of politics. And that is part of the game. Now, you can be a quote unquote normal politician who nobody knows and not have a lot of name recognition, but you still got to figure out a way to win elections. And being famous helps win elections. Case in point, who's our current president? One reason he won the election because he was famous. He didn't just come out of nowhere. He did, but he didn't. Everybody knew who he was, right? This is part of the show. So, national attention on crime in D.C., which Donald Trump has now drawn by saying what he said. It can push for quicker fixes in problem zones, which means sometimes politicians, Trump does this, they all do this. Trump just does it out loud in a way that everybody notices, is that he will draw attention or direct everyone's attention to a certain thing that he thinks is a problem, or maybe he doesn't think is a problem. He just wants something done about it. And because he said it, everybody starts talking about it. So now, for the last 5 days, everyone's been talking about, everyone, is the political press is a whole group of people whose whole full-time job is just follow what's happening in the White House and report on it. So he gets everyone, that's what I mean when I say everyone, talking about whatever he says. So for the last 5 days, everyone has been talking about crime in Washington, D.C. Well, what does that do? It puts a spotlight on Washington, D.C. It puts a spotlight on the police in D.C. It puts a spotlight on the police district in D.C. It puts a spotlight on the mayor, and it puts a spotlight on whoever is responsible for crime in Washington, D.C. Everybody has to talk about it. Everyone has to defend themselves. Why? Because this creates news headlines. And understand that people who work in the news business, what is their credo? If it bleeds, it leads. Anything that they can bring up to you that would alarm you, cause you anxiety, fear, suspicion, worry, all of these types of things, they must use it because what that does is get you to pay attention. And when you pay attention, they can charge more money to their sponsors and advertisers. And when the sponsors and advertisers write checks, the people who work in the news industry get paid. And if no one is paying attention, the sponsors won't pay money. And if the sponsors aren't paying money, there goes the job. Nobody knows anything. Now, how do they justify this? If you know this logically, how do they justify continuing to do this? They justify it with, hey, maybe we gave you 10 stories of nonsense and getting you alarmed over something that was a complete, as Kevin O'Leary says, nothing burger. But remember those 3 times when we brought up something that actually was real? Those 3 times and it was actually true? And this is human nature. Human nature is such constituted that if I give you 30 stories of complete nonsense just to try to get you excited, and they're all end up being complete bullshit, wastes of your time, but I got your attention. But then 3 times I gave you something that got you excited and actually ended up being real, you will forgive the 30 because of the 3. This is human nature, and the media industry understands this very well. So they'll get you all excited about every single thing Trump says, and then on every 10 times he says something, maybe one time it's something you actually need to know, and that one time justifies the other 10. That's how the media industry works. There's another reason why I told y'all facts don't matter anymore. You need to not be so persuaded by the things that media comes and throws at you. And when I say media, I don't mean the media, like news and CNN and TV. Anyone on media, including these platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You had to be more discerning. Just for all of you. All of you had to step up your skill of discernment. Discernment means judgment. It means your ability to look at a situation and figure out what's really going on as opposed to what you're being told. You have to learn to think for yourself. That's going to be one of the most critical, along with communication skills. Thinking for yourself is going to be one of the most critical, most valuable tools necessary in the next 10 to 15 years, simply because artificial intelligence is going to replace a lot of people actually thinking at all, let alone thinking for themselves, let alone thinking critically. People are just not going to think at all. You ask somebody a question, what they're going to do is plug it into Chat GPT or Grok or whatever it called or whatever one of these other AI platforms. The AI is going to tell them the answer, and they're going to go repeat whatever the AI said without even thinking, does that make any sense whatsoever? That's going to happen within the next, that's not going to take 15 years. Probably the next 5. People are just not going to think at all. There will be no thinking. So those of you who actually think, and you can think critically and you can think for yourself, despite what everybody else, quote unquote, everybody else is saying, you will be an extremely valuable individual. But you should start building up those skills right now because you're going to need them. So anyway, this national attention can push for quicker fixes in problem zones. Why? Because the optics is everybody talking about the subject. Now the people in the police department, now they got to go scramble and do something to make it look like they're not complete bums. As soon as Donald Trump said that, the mayor in D.C. and the head of police in D.C. had to come out and say something. Why? Because they were like idiots if they did. Because Donald Trump just put a spotlight on them. Look at all this crime happening in D.C. And he didn't even say their names. He didn't say the mayor. He didn't say the chief of police. But because he mentioned their town and he mentioned what's happening there, it automatically put the spotlight on them. Like, damn, now we got to do something. Now he just put us under the scope. Now we're under the microscope. Now we got to do something. Now they got to come out and say something. I guarantee you that they did. Let me see if I can find out. After Donald Trump's post about the crime in Washington, D.C. and possibly federalizing crime or federalizing law enforcement in D.C. by sending federal troops in, what did the mayor of Washington, D.C. and the chief of police in Washington, D.C. have to say in response to that over the last 5 days, if anything? So here I'm asking Grok. So Grok is pretty good with current event stuff. Whereas Chat GPT is better for like evergreen things. So it's analyzing my request. It says Elon announced that Grok put out like an updated thing. There is one thing I'll tell you. This thing called Grok Imagine. Have y'all used this? I'm on the Grok app on my phone. This is free. And Grok Imagine allows you to create images. This thing is so fast. It's crazy. I typed something in there the other day and the image came up in like 3 seconds. Whatever it is that I typed in. And here's just showing you a whole bunch of images that people have created with, that's not it, people have created with Grok. This thing is fast as hell. It's crazy. And that's how fast AI is going to be moving forward. You'll be able to create images out of nothing quickly. So I'm still waiting for Grok to tell me. So it's doing some deep dive research on this. Grok's ability to create images is crazy though. And it can take an image and make something else out of it. So I took a picture of myself and I put it in Grok and told it to turn into a video. It did this. So that was actually a picture of myself. But then when it starts moving, it kind of distorts my face. That's not the way I actually look. And it has some sound at the end. I don't know what the hell that is. But this is from Grok Imagine. This took literally like 10 seconds. Now that's a real picture, but the video, it did it in 10 seconds. Other apps do this too, but it takes longer. And then I told it to do something with this Power Presence Protocol, which is my program starting next week, by the way. If you're not in it, you should get in it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com/power. You can learn more about that. So I'm still waiting for them. All right, Grok is taking forever. We're not waiting. So they probably came out and said something. Why? Because he put a spotlight on them. So continuing. Please keep liking and live, everybody. So these strong optics for this law and order message, which Trump has been standing on for 10 years, this is right on brand. One thing that whether you like Trump or you don't like him, that everybody has to admit is that the guy has stayed on brand with what he said he was about. Doesn't mean he doesn't have to massage the truth every now and then. Doesn't mean he doesn't have to kind of walk around a topic that he doesn't want to talk about anymore, like the Epstein, whatever, files, documents, whatever they are. He has to walk around some things every now and then. Every politician does, because you got the whole country listening to everything you say, and they can and will use it against you. But this whole concept of law and order, Trump has been about this from the very beginning, and it resonates with his base. Trump's base is people who want law and order. They want criminals out. They have been conditioned to believe that a lot of the criminals in America are people who are here without proper documentation, and there are criminals who have proper documentation that just need to be thrown in jail. And he wants all law, all order, more cops everywhere, more safety, safer cities, less crime, less tolerance of people committing crime. And it's not that that message is necessarily wrong, but the reason why he keeps using it and the reason why it is so effective is because his political opposition, the Democratic Party, has stupidly planted their flag on, we want to protect people who have been accused of crimes, and we want to try to get them out of jail, and we want to lessen this. And it's the whole defund the police. Remember that one? How'd that go? The whole defunding the police. We don't need cops. We need to divert resources that go to cops to other things like communities and community centers and intervention programs and all this other nonsense. And it's not that it's necessarily wrong, but this is a bad idea by the political left. Just my personal opinion. It's a bad idea by the political left to plant their flag on, oh, Donald Trump is about law and order, so what are we about? They're about no law and disorder? What exactly are you doing? And this is the mistake the political left has made for the last 10 years, is that anything Donald Trump says or stands on, they go and take the opposite position. I saw somebody say this on X the other day, that Donald Trump said oxygen is good, that the political left would just suffocate. They would just suffocate themselves to death just to make a point of not being on the same side as Donald Trump. And of course, it's sarcasm, but that person's not that far off. And if Donald Trump comes out and says something like, the other countries are sending people to our countries as immigrants, but they're not sending their best and they're bad people and they're in gangs, it's cool to take the other side of that. Like, hey, don't make it seem like every immigrant's a bad person. That's actually a good way to oppose him, if you want to take the absurd level of some of the things that he said, because that is something he said. That wasn't his whole point. But if you want to take that little piece out of context and use it against him, that's political theater. That's part of the game. Do it. But don't take him saying law and order and then what you're going to do. You're going to go support the criminals? Criminal justice reform? What about reform and justice for the victims? I never heard of victim justice. All I hear about is criminal justice. This is a bad position that the political left has taken. And you all may remember that same summer, 2020, when the protests / riots, because it was a combination of both, were happening in big cities all over America after the Floyd thing, George Floyd. There were people being arrested for disorderly conduct, for burning buildings, for doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. We know that this happened, and we know people were doing it. And many politicians, well-known politicians, including our former vice president, Madam Harris, they were announcing on social media, we want to raise money to bail these people out of incarceration. On what grounds? Why would you do that? This is a bad idea. I mean, it felt good in the moment for some people on the political left, including, let's just use Kamala Harris, because she was the biggest name. It felt good for them to say that, and it probably even felt good to do it because there was a whole lot of momentum at that time in the summer of 2020. Let's go against anything Trump. And Trump lost the 2020 election on two things. One was that virus, and two was, well, everything that came from the virus. And Joe Biden saying, I'm not him. It was the virus mostly, and then it was everything that resulted from the virus. Job loss, people not having jobs, the economy being down, the uncertainty of the future because no one knew what the hell was going on with that whole thing. And Kamala Harris was the running mate of Joe Biden, so she did what she had to do. The problem is now they're going to keep using that against you. And Kamala is not as good at pivoting as Trump is. Trump is very good at pivoting. He's very good at coming out and planting his flag on one thing, and then when that thing no longer serves him, he can pivot and talk about something else just as strongly to where you forget about that other thing and you focus on this thing. He's very good at that. Kamala, not so much. Remember that winning political elections is a public speaking competition. Kamala is not a good public speaker. This is the reason why, one of the main reasons why she didn't win. She's good at pushing something once she got the point, but how quickly can you pivot to something else? She's not good at that. So anyway, this whole law and order message resonates with a base of people who are not criminals and they don't commit crimes. Listen, I'm an American citizen. I don't commit crimes. I prefer the concept of law and order. Why? Because I'm not committing any crime. So law and order helps me. I'm not concerned with if there was a cop on every corner. As soon as I walk out the house, that's cool. I'm not worried about the cops. I don't get nervous when I see a cop. I don't have a confrontational relationship with police. I don't get anxious when there are more cops around. I feel good when there are cops around because that means there are going to be no knuckleheads doing any types of shenanigans because there are cops around. That means I don't have to deal with them myself. The cops will take care of them. Good. I'm all for more cops, as many cops as possible. Why? Because I'm not committing crime. Anyone who's not committing crime doesn't have a problem with cops. If you got a problem with cops, you might be doing something that leads you to have what you got anxiety about a cop for. What's your reason? I'm happy because that means no shenanigans. I like being in places where there are no shenanigans, people acting like they have no sense. That's what I like. So the more cops, the better. And anyone pushing this idea, if you don't commit crime, but you are feigning as if you have an issue with the presence of police, I need you to explain that to me. Why do you have an issue with the presence of police if you're not committing a crime? What are you going to do? What's the problem that you have with the cop being there if you're not doing anything? I don't see an issue. The cop is just a person just doing their job. And if you're not doing anything that would draw the attention of a police officer, then there's nothing to be concerned with. Now, if you are doing something that would draw the attention of a police officer, well, then let's address your behavior. Let's not address the cop. That's my stance on that, generally speaking. It's not the whole topic here today. Let's continue. So some say the federal presence and the local policing can cause friction with city leadership. I say absolutely, this is true. If Donald Trump was to actually follow through on what he threatened, and I would say about 85% to 15%, he's probably not going to do this. Most of the time when Donald Trump is saying these kind of things, all he's doing, which is very effective, is he puts a spotlight on the subject. Now everybody's talking about that subject. Now the target of that spotlight, they have to respond because everybody's talking about it. That is usually enough. He doesn't have to actually follow through with what he says. So when he threatens that I might send federal agents into D.C. to work with the cops, is he actually going to do that? I would say there's about a 15% chance that happens. Probably not. But him saying it alone is going to get enough of a response out of them that they start doing what he wants them to do, which is get your shit together, which is pretty much what he was saying. And don't let what happened happen again, especially in the area that he cares about, which is where the politics happen. Now, is he caring about what's happening in the ghetto in D.C.? I highly doubt it. But at the same time, let's be very clear. Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, they didn't care either. All right, and they all worked in D.C. too. All right, so let's not put this on Trump. It's not a white thing. It's not a right or left thing. They didn't care either. All right, they care. Every person cares when something's in their front yard. This is just human nature. Again, this is definitely politics. People only care when something comes to their front yard. Now, if that whole thing had happened and the person who jumped out and tried to stop the carjacking was some random white guy and he wasn't someone who worked at Doge, he wasn't someone who was working for the government, would Donald Trump care? If it was happening, maybe not in the same spot because it was close enough to the political areas, but if it wasn't in the political areas where the politic people hang, and it was some random person who didn't work for Doge, would Donald Trump care? Would he be talking about it? The answer is no, he would not care. No, he wouldn't be talking about it. Maybe he would care, but he wouldn't be talking about it. Now, again, take Donald Trump's name out of it. Let's say the same thing happened when Biden was president. Would he say something? No. Let's say it happened when Obama was president. Would he say something? No. Let's say it happened when Bush or Clinton was president. Would either of them say something? The answer is no and no. None of them would care. People only care about things when it's in their front lawn and it lands in their lap. That's when people get excited about things. This applies to them the same way it applies to you. Now, people make shows of caring about everybody and wanting to help everything and wanting to change the world, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds good on TV, but what are they actually doing? Look at their actions. Don't just listen to their words. You want to know what somebody's really about? Look what they actually do. So would this cause friction if Trump was to send federal agents in with the local cops? Of course it would, because the local cops are going to be like, wait, this is our turf. We police these streets. Y'all coming in like we are not good at doing our jobs. There's going to be friction just by the fact that they showed up. Would they actually get anything done? Probably. But would there be a ton of friction and a ton of red tape? Absolutely. But is this actually going to happen? No, it's not. So if it happens, we'll do a whole nother live on it. I'm predicting 85%, but 85% confidence this is not going to happen. Now, some say this risks over-policing or civil liberty concerns if tactics are too aggressive. Again, I touched on this earlier. Can this happen when police are instructed to be more, quote unquote, proactive to stop crime before it happens? The answer is yes, it can happen. Usually it happens in areas that already have high crime because that's where more cops get sent. So the places where I live, there's not a lot of crime. Therefore, there wouldn't be a cop on every corner because we don't need a cop on every corner. But in areas where there's the ghetto and there's the hood and there's crime and there's shenanigans happening all the time, there'll be cops on every corner. And we got a cop on every corner. Well, they're there because the stats say this is where the crime is happening. So let's put cops here. So when the crime happens, they're ready. Or let's put the cop here as a deterrence from the crime occurring. And it can actually work both ways. Could it actually create some tension? Yes. Because if someone is even looking suspect, then I might draw the attention of a cop. Again, as I said, if you're not doing anything that draws the attention of a police officer, what problem do you have with police officers? But if you do something or you represent something that draws the attention of a police officer, let's address that point. If the cops say, or the cops know, hey, it's a bunch of young black youths walking around with hoodies on their heads who have been carjacking and committing assaults and robberies in the streets. And then you and your friends, you're a young black man, you're walking around with a hoodie on your head and your friends got hoodies on their heads. Y'all not doing anything wrong, but you meet the description of someone who has been doing something wrong. You may get the attention of police even though you didn't do anything. This is where the conflict comes in. This is where the over-policing, the conflict comes in. Well, you look like the type of suspect who's been doing the wrong thing. So now the cops are kind of on you and watching everything that you do. It creates this tension. You didn't do anything. They didn't do anything either, but they're there and you see that they're watching you. And now it creates this whole dynamic where shenanigans can happen, whether that's the fault of the cop or is the fault of the would-be suspect. To that, I say the following. And I say this as a black man in America who comes from the hood. I'm not in the hood, but I come from the hood. Is that anything that if you look like or feel like or smell like someone who's doing the wrong thing, and that is drawing a certain type of negative attention to you, I would suggest you look in the mirror and make an adjustment to your approach. That's my position. If you know the word around the neighborhood is that some dude's walking around in a hoodie with the hood over his head and he's committing carjackings and robberies, and you know that everybody's on the lookout for a guy walking around with a hoodie over his head, why would you walk around with a hoodie over your head? Now, this doesn't make any sense. That's just bad. That's a bad business move. Why is that a bad business move? Because you already know that everybody's on high alert for a dude walking around in a hoodie. So why would you walk around in a hoodie? All you're doing is asking for negative attention that you don't want. And some will say, well, I want to be able to express myself. And if I'm not doing anything wrong, I can wear a hoodie over my head if I want. And I say, you're right on both counts. And at the same time, if something looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, people are going to treat you like you're a duck. So you got to take the trade-off for that. There are no perfect scenarios in life. Everything has a cost. Opportunity cost is one of the laws of economics. Opportunity cost means everything you do, the cost is everything that you're not doing. And it's also known as a trade-off. So if you know that everybody's walking around knowing that a person with a hoodie over their head might do something wrong, and you're walking around with a hoodie over your head, and everybody's looking at you like you might do something wrong, and they're giving you a certain type of energy, and you're like, why is everybody giving me this energy? Well, mofo, you know why. That's how it goes. Also, not for nothing, just being in the hood or being in a certain neighborhood does not mean that you're going to be over-policed or bothered by police officers just because you're there. That's not the case. And a lot of people tend to think that. And you get a lot of black people saying that, and it's not true. And you got a lot of people who ain't never even been to the hood, couldn't find it with damn Google Maps talking about it as if you know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Be quiet. If you're walking around the hood dressed the way that I'm dressed, are cops going to be hunting you down and bothering you? No. And the cop ain't going to say nothing to you. Except, hello, good morning, how you doing? All right, that's what the cop's going to say to you. I'm not saying you got to put on a suit. What I'm saying is the way you carry yourself, knowing the environment, and knowing what people are looking out for and knowing what draws certain types of attention, you might need to learn how to play the game. All right, my company is called Work on Your Game. All right, the reason it's called Work on Your Game is because the first thing you got to do is understand what game you're in. What does that mean? If you live in the hood and you know that a certain way of carrying yourself and a certain types of places to be, you know that bar over there or that corner store over there or these dudes standing on the corner or that nightclub down there, if you know these places tend to be hotbeds for where certain things that you don't want to be involved in are happening, that you might want to think about how often you want to be in those places. You know better. That's part of the game. If you know the game is people walking around with hoodies over their heads are looked at as suspects because the guys doing all the crimes have hoodies on their heads, doesn't mean you're doing crime because you have a hoodie over your head, but it does mean people are going to be looking at you like you might be one of them because you look like them. Is that part of the deal? Yes, it is. Now, when I say look like, I'm talking about things you can control. I'm not talking about your skin color. Because in the hood, most people tend to be the same color, at least where I come from. I'm not saying the fact that you're black, because everybody's black. Right? There's black people in suits. There's black people who are 50-year-old ladies going to church. All right, they don't get bothered by the cops. So it depends on how you want to present yourself. And you have 100% choice in doing it. You can present yourself in a way that people look at you and they don't see you as a threat. You can present yourself in a way that they might, based on your energy, also based on your associations, who you hanging with. And everybody understands this. Every black person who's from the hood understands this very well. But what happens is black people get around white folks who can't talk to them the way that I'm talking to them, and they start cosplaying that they are victims just because of their skin color and just because the cops come around looking for black people, et cetera, et cetera. Miss me with that bullshit. I'm from the same neighborhood you from. You can push that shit on some white people at some college. All right, not on me. Anyway, this could deter opportunistic crime if criminals believe more officers are watching, which I already said. You put more cops on every corner, that can deter crime. But I'm not going to break into that house on the corner because there's a cop standing right there. You're probably not going to get away with it. Now, that also, again, can lead to tension, as I already mentioned. And this may create a misleading perception that DC is unsafe despite data showing the opposite. Well, as I already said, the data can say whatever it wants to say. Optics overpower data. Can we all agree to this? I think we can. When we saw that viral video of Mr. Floyd laying on the ground in handcuffs saying, "I can't breathe," and then next thing you knew, he was passed away. And then you saw a white cop kneeling on his whatever, his upper body, whatever part you want to label, he was kneeling on, and he's passed away. Do the facts matter? Not really. Do the fact that we didn't know the facts. The day that video went viral, we didn't know the facts. All we knew is what we saw. What we saw was a white guy kneeling on the upper body of a black man. That man said, "I can't breathe." And then we found out the man was dead. Did it matter what the facts were? Did we wait 3 weeks to get the full body cam footage? No and no. People immediately responded. Reacted. Optics matter. So the optics of this guy, this white guy, getting beat up in DC because he was trying to stop a carjacking of 10 juveniles jacking somebody's car. Now, the optics of that matter more than the facts of it. The facts of, crime is down in DC, but here it is, a video of a guy getting beat up because he tried to stop a carjacking with 10 black youths. Which one matters more? Of course, the optics, what we can see. That's what matters more. It's like somebody doing a speech and saying, "Hey, global warming is a big problem." But while they're giving the speech, it's snowing outside. They're standing outside in a snowstorm and they're saying it's global warming. Now, yes, I understand for anyone who comes in with the comment, global warming doesn't mean hot weather. Global warming doesn't mean it's going to be 100 degrees outside. That's not what it means. But you understand that the average human being, we hear things and we see them viscerally. So when I say global warming, the first thing that triggers in somebody's mind when you hear the word warming is heat, warmth, things being hot. So if you're giving a speech about global warming and it's snowing outside, there's an incongruence between what we see and what we're hearing. And most of the time, people are going to go off of what they see more than they're going to go off of what they hear. This is just human nature. And the point is, why did I say that? Optics. What is optics? Optics is what you see. So don't tell me the crime is down, is a 30-year low in DC when my grandma just got robbed last week in DC. Now, I don't give a damn about the crime stats. My grandma got robbed. What do I got to do with the crime stats? What's it going to do about that? That's the point that y'all got to understand about all of this. You can't come up and tell people that the crime is down and give me, quote unquote, the facts of a situation when I just had something viscerally happen to me that very much disturbs and bothers me. I don't want to hear shit about any crime stats. Anyway, all that said, everybody, as I promised, let's get into the content here. Comments. Excuse me. I told you content and then comments. So let's get into the comments and see what any of you have to say about any of this. I read the comments from oldest to newest. So if you're leaving a comment right now at this very moment, I'm not ignoring your comment. I just got to read the oldest ones first, and I try to catch up. I try to catch up to the live real-time comments by the time I get to the end of this. We have no more than about 37 minutes here to get through the comments. Then we'll be done. Will Aviles on Instagram said, "Funny name you mentioned, the top of head Congress people are loud Democrats. LOL." Yeah, and they're loud. The whole point is them being loud. Whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they're all very loud. That's why we know who they are. All the politicians you can name outside of the president, the ones you can name are because they're loud, they got big megaphones, and they make sure you know who they are. Tap the screen, folks. Tap the screen. We're at 54,000 likes. Let's get to 100, please. So a bunch of you said you couldn't name 5 politicians. I, off the top of my head, if you just stopped me in the middle of doing something else, I probably couldn't either. But if I was, let's say, on social media, maybe I can name more because they're top of mind for me. Mimi of 5, thank you for the follow. KS Priest, thanks for the gift. Miss Nikki Free, thanks for the follow. Please keep liking the live, everybody. Jim said, how do you feel about Donnie being a racist? Well, the thing about racism is it has like 7 different definitions now. The first definition, when you look up racism in the dictionary, is a thought or belief that one race is superior to others on the basis of race alone. That's the first definition. The first definition of any word is the most common uses of the word. So when you call somebody racist, you're already false because racism is an accusation. It's not something you can factually prove. Now, if you go into the second, third, fourth, fifth definitions of racism, then you have other ways to language it. So the whole challenge with the word racism is that there's so many different ways to define it, or racist. There's so many different ways to define it and so many different conversations people want to have about it that the word has ceased to have the value that it used to have. And when I say value, what I mean is if you call somebody racist, it actually was an impactful thing to say about a person. Nowadays, you call somebody racist is like, yeah, okay. Next question. That's pretty much. So, Jim, what you just did, I mean, I get what you're trying to do, but the word doesn't mean anything anymore. So just throwing it out has no value because people have overused the term. Hey, thanks for following and the share. Kamala, thanks for following the live. Is that Kamala Harris? Donald Wilson said, the people you just named has also wrote and submitted bills. Okay, fair enough. What does that change about the fact that we know who they are? Now, you don't know them because they submitted a bill. You know them because they make sure you know their name. There's a bunch of people wrote and submit bills that we don't know their names. So Miss Tate said government employees should feel safe walking to their cars. Everybody should feel safe walking to their cars. I don't care who they work. You ain't got to have a job. You should feel safe walking to your car. And well, one way to feel safe is to live in a neighborhood where shenanigans don't happen. Another way to feel safe is to arm yourself, whether with your physical capabilities or with weapons or with both, so you know you can deal with anybody who comes up with some shenanigans. And another way is to hope that there are more cops around. So you got basically 3 options. Or option 4, don't have a car. KK, thanks for the follow. I'm his daughter, 78. Good morning. David, C.A. David said, Trump is taking care of business, though, which is the best we can hope for. Well, he's doing what he can with the resources he has. I mean, every politician has a limit of resources. People, money, time, all of those, they have limited resources. Woman after God's heart, thanks for the follow and the share. Lisi said, Lisi, thanks for the follow. Ruby said, I keep reminding people AI was programmed by humans. Yes, exactly. And AI is trained on stuff that humans say. So anything that AI gives you, it came from a person. So it's funny when somebody says, well, you got your answer from AI. And I'm like, dude, where did AI get his answer from? The same place you get yours from. You Google something, where you getting it from? Something that somebody put on the internet. All AI did was take all the information on the internet, download it, basically synthesize it, and now it can spit it back out to you faster than Google can with context. That's the only difference between AI and Google is that it gives you everything in context. So it saves you time, but it's pulling from the same source, which is people. This is why facts don't matter anymore, because people can put anything on the internet. I can put anything I want on the internet, and AI may take that and use it as an answer that somebody else across the world gets 10 years from now when they ask a question. Donald said, what did we miss with these clear lies Trump has told? Which ones? Which one are you talking about? Politically dubious said, yeah, because one kid got beat up from those. Yeah, exactly. That's what I talked about earlier. Politically dubious said, isn't that the racist AI? What, Grok? I think you can catch any AI being racist if you ask it the right question. If you can manipulate it the right way, you can get it to say anything that you could kind of use against it. T Green said, in my lifetime, we have young dudes like him in our community. Carlton, why don't you talk like me? Who are you talking about? You talking about me or you talking about someone else? Mr. Xander, thanks for the follow. Dustin B, thanks for the follow. Xavier said his cabinet is a bunch of criminals. Y'all with these Trump pejoratives. Every time I mention them, people come up with this. Y'all got to come up with something better than this. Everything y'all saying here has already been said. Politically dubious said he's kicking out anybody brown, green card or not. No, I don't know about that one. Scrap said, why did he pardon criminals? Well, I mean, it's kind of what pardoning is for. Someone who either did or they might get charged with committing a crime, so you pardon them. Joe Biden did that too. Obama did it. They all do it. So who's he? River, thanks for the follow. Bruce Berger said, yeah, your people will never tell on a criminal. You talking about black people? Yeah, they will. People in the street might not, but everyday civilians, yes, they will. They'll tell on the criminal. You're saying you're people, so you're not in the hood. You don't know what you're talking about. Caitlin said he is just trying to do anything to distract from the name in the Epstein files. Well, Caitlin, if you think he's in Epstein files, why didn't Biden put it out? They could have used that against him very easily. But Heck said over policing is a consequence of under policing and under prosecuting. Okay, it's a equal and opposite reaction is what you're saying. It's one of Newton's laws of energy. I can see that position. Joe Byron said Dems run on emotions, so they use immigrant to make you feel bad for them. Well, emotions work to move people to action. Joe Byron said there's a reason why Democrats do win elections. All right. So 2026, the Dems going to win at least one of those sides of Congress. I'm pretty sure of that. Kiki said the Floyd thing in quotation marks, Jesus Christ. I think you get the straw man of the day for that, Kiki. So Kiki, straw man of the day. Kiki gets the first one. So straw man, those of you who don't know what it is a common logical fallacy. When someone takes something that you say, they reframe or rephrase it into something else, and then they represent it to you, either using ridicule or incredulity or some form of a question as if they're asking you about your own words when they're really not. So what Kiki did here is use incredulity and sarcasm. When I said the Floyd thing, because I mentioned it and talked about it in detail at the top of this live, Kiki, I think your comment came maybe a little bit later. And the Floyd thing, George Floyd, is not the topic here today. So I'm lightly alluding to it. I'm not doing a whole live on it. And you saying Jesus Christ as if incredulity over the fact that I called it that, miss me and take that nonsense back to preschool. So Caitlin said, yeah, Trump pardoned a bunch of cop killers from January 6th. Well, I don't think anybody who got pardoned from January 6th was a cop killer because no cops lost their lives on January 6th, Caitlin. So this is just a false point. And should we get us a straw man? I'm trying to think. Caitlin says Trump pardoned a bunch of cop killers. Yeah, you get the straw man too. So Caitlin Ryan gets straw man of the day, number 2. She said Trump pardoned a bunch of cop killers from January 6th. First of all, no police officers passed away on January 6th. There was a police officer who passed away shortly after January 6th, one of the officers at D.C. specifically. He passed away from something that was completely unrelated. That is by the medical examiner's examination of that body. It was not because of anything that happened on January 6th. So it's not possible for there to be anyone who did anything to a cop that caused them to lose their lives on January 6th. So everybody who got pardoned, none of them killed the cop. So Caitlin, nice try. I don't know if you actually believe that or you're just being sarcastic. Either way, it's a straw man. A-Ritz, thanks for the follow. Politically dubious said law and order is shorthand for get rid of black and brown. No, it's not. It's shorthand for getting rid of criminals. And if the criminal happens to be black or brown, then they got to go. And I'm okay with that. I'm a black person saying I'm okay with that. And a lot of black people who are everyday civilians who don't commit crimes, they are also okay with it. A lot of black people don't want to say it out loud because they don't want to run the risk of having a black or white person think that they are, quote unquote, supporting Donald Trump by saying they're okay with law and order. I'm okay with law and order. All right, so if that means I'm, quote unquote, supporting him, I was okay with law and order when Obama was president. I've always been okay with law and order because I don't commit crimes. Scrap said law and order pushed by a criminal, LOL. Well, he went to court, didn't he? Now, that's what happens when you commit a crime or you're suspected of one, you go to court. He went to court. Just the Mess from TX. I like that name. Just the Mess from TX 2.0. So there was a 1.0 Just the Mess from TX. Now there's a 2.0. Thanks for the follow, Jess. Jenica LaSalle. I still believe that those voting results are legitimate. In my opinion, Elon Musk tampered. In your opinion, he tampered? What does that even mean? You have an opinion that he tampered? I'm not sure. I'm not connecting what that means. Chelsea, thanks for the comment. Said facts. Thank you. Just the Mess. Thanks for joining the fan club and for the heart. Politically dubious said a police officer could have a bad day. You could be in jail for the weekend. That could happen. Never happened to me. Politically dubious. It ever happened to you? So what you're saying, you're offering a hypothetical. If a cop's having a bad day, hey, you might end up being George Floyd. Hey, maybe. How many times has it happened to you? How many times has George Floyd happened to you because a cop was having a bad day? I've been alive for a long time. I've been a lot of places. I'm a city guy. I come from the hood. I live in places where there are cops all the time, and I've never run into a cop who's having a bad enough day that anything happened to me. So what are you referring to? Worst thing that can happen to me when a cop's having a bad day, if I think back in my entire life, would be getting pulled over for a speeding ticket or some nonsense like that. Nothing ever came anywhere close to a George Floyd. Not even close. So the cop can have as many bad days as he wants to. If you don't return the energy of someone else having a bad day, then usually they calm down. You know what? Anytime you're dealing with another human being, whether they're a cop or not, if they're having a bad day and they're putting out antagonistic energy, if you don't push back against their antagonistic energy, they usually will calm down and leave you alone, because you can't push if something's not pushing back. If you're standing in front of me and I push like this and you just fall down, I'm not going to push you again because you didn't push back. Now, if I push you and you push me back, now we might fight because you return the energy. But if I don't return the energy, you're pretty much going to go find somebody who will return the energy. That's the person who ends up being George Floyd. All right, George Floyd returned the energy in his way, which was as soon as he got out the car, he said, I can't breathe. He was still standing up with no cuffs on, talking about I can't breathe. So obviously this was his thing. Anytime he came to the cops, he would say, I can't breathe, to try to get them to leave him alone. Then he said, I'm claustrophobic, can't get in the car. Watch the whole video. They put him in the car. They're about to take him to the precinct. He said, I can't be in the car. I'm claustrophobic. He started kicking and kicking, so they couldn't put him in the car. It was four of them trying to put him in the car. They couldn't get him in the car. So they put him on the ground. And then what happened ended up happening. He returned the energy. Now, had any of those things happen to one of you, if they would have said, get out the car, and then put the cuffs on you because you used the fake $20 bill, you would have went to jail, you would have got out, it wouldn't be a story. Or let's say they even put you in the car and they take you there. You go to jail, you call your lawyer, you get out. Even when they put you on the ground, if you don't fight and you're just laying on the ground, eventually they'll pick you up off the ground, put you in the car, you go to jail, and it's over. It wouldn't be a story. There were several different things Mr. Floyd did along the way that led to his demise. Now, am I saying it's 100% his fault? No. Am I saying he's 100% innocent? Also no. All right, did he do some things that led to what happened to him? Yes, he did. Number one, when the cops put the cuffs on him, he tried to fight. What are you going to do? It's four of them, one of you. You already got pharmaceuticals in your system. It's four of them, one of you, and you got cuffs on. What exactly was he going to do? If he was of his right mind, and any of you in your right mind would not see any point in fighting at that point. Resistance is futile when you're handcuffed and there's four people in them, one of you, and you're already under the influence of something. What is the goal here? What's going to be achieved? There's no pushback to that point. Usually when I bring that up, somebody tries to change the subject to something different. There is no pushback to that point. If he had lived and he came to me and said, Dre, what you think about that? After watching the body cam footage, I said, you stupid mofo, what the hell are you doing? What are you going to do? Fight the cops with your hands literally tied behind your back? And you got something in your system that you just threw in your mouth. What are you going to do? So anyway, Second Street said, what about cops who are not upstanding and overreact because of person's color? Again, Second Street, I don't know if you're black. I'm black. I'm 43 years of age. I've never had a cop overreact because of my color. Never. So when does this happen and where does this happen? A lot of black people like to throw these things out there. When does this happen? When does it happen to you? Now, I don't know you, so you could easily make something up and say something, but this doesn't happen. It sounds good, but it doesn't happen. Yolande M. Leon, thanks for the follow. The I Am Project said, did you read all those books behind you? Well, the books that you can see behind me are books that I wrote. So technically, yes, I did read them. I read them and I wrote them. I have more books that you can't see that I did not write that I have read, and some that I haven't. I got a bunch that I have not read yet. Politically Dubious said, I think you're forgetting about the beer summit that Obama had to have. I don't know about the beer summit, so I'm not forgetting it. I didn't know about it. Rhonda 16 said, I've lived long enough to see this happen. You are a Pollyannish to not recognize the risk. What risk are you referring to, Rhonda 16? Spell it out. Aaron said, I suspect it's not the police problem, it's the prosecution problem. I would agree. If I had to lean it one way or another, Aaron Goodwin, I'll probably push towards the prosecution as well, more than the police. But it is also lack of police, lack of resources. Michelle, good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for the rose. King Cardell, thanks for the follow. Politically Dubious said, get a haircut and a suit, problem solved, no more disproportionate justice. I don't know. I'm assuming you're talking about me, so you get a straw man for that. Politically Dubious, congratulations. I think you're trying. So straw man of the day, number 3, goes to Politically Dubious. He said, get a haircut and a suit, problem solved. I guess he's talking about me. So we got an appeal to ridicule there. And this is not a haircut. This is shave. I shave every single day. So and if I was naturally bald, I wouldn't even have to shave. I had to shave every day. So that's a shave, not a haircut. And this is a suit. And you're saying problem solved. So this is a sarcasm. And you're basically taking my position of the disproportionate justice just being something that people like to throw out there without actually know. Of course, there are examples, but examples don't prove arguments. You need full-on stats. And the thing is, I just told you, facts don't matter anymore. So now we don't know who to trust. So it's much more appeal to sarcasm and ridicule, but those are often forms of the straw man. So you kind of did a couple things here at the same time. So congrats to you. African Violet said we had to change the perception of how to look at black men. Well, the perception of whom? Whose perception are you referring to, African Violet? Delta K says straight no chaser commentary. Thank you. And love it. Thank you, Delta K. Michael Sunbird, thanks for the follow. Please keep liking the live, folks. We're at 70,000 likes. We got 20 minutes left. Please keep liking the live. Let's get to 100K by 10 o'clock. Andre Watson said, why should I have to just like you to live the life? Andre, let me read that again. Andre Watson, why should I have to just like you to live the life? Andre, I need you to reword this in proper grammar so I understand what you're asking. And give more context if you wish. Robert C. Henry said, who the hell walking around in a suit? Well, a lot of people walking around in suits, Robert. And again, I said right after I said that, I'm not telling you to walk around in a suit. What I'm saying is, if you know the perception of certain types of people is leading to a certain type of outcome, then don't make yourself look like that, because all you're doing is setting yourself up for a problem. Is what I said. And I said that clearly. So, Robert, you are maybe just looking for something to disagree with, which is fine. But you got to bring more substance if you want to engage in this conversation any further. Mr. Moss, I appreciate you, said my brother, well spoken. African Violet said, you're going to get the negative perception in corporate America in suit or not. No, that's nonsense, African Violet. This is some Negro conditioning that you are reflecting here, that a lot of black people have it. You're not the only one. You're just representing it right now. This is the Negro conditioning. Now, I'm using the word Negro for the other word that I'm not going to say here, that you are espousing here. Oh, you're black, so they're going to look at you this way no matter what it is that you do. Are there people who are going to look at you negative just because of what you look like, whether that's male, female, black, white, in a suit, not in a suit, tall, short, fat, skinny? Yes, there are people who will make prejudgments about you based on your outward appearance. And it doesn't matter who they are, and it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, you could be a white woman, and there are white men who are going to look at you negative just because you're a white woman. You could be a black man, and there are black people who look at you negative just because you're black. So these prejudgments people make about people all the time. It is not endemic to any one group, and is not endemic against anybody or endemic for any one group. What you're saying here, African Violet. But again, a lot of black people believe this. African Violet, how many years have you spent working in corporate? I would assume by the ignorance of your comment, probably 0. But you have heard these things, and then you go repeat them, and then you get around other black Negroes who think the same way, and then you all basically co-sign each other's nonsense, and then you come to believe it, and then you go repeating it, and then you come across somebody like me who calls you out on your nonsense, and then you end up being uncomfortable. I do not work in corporate America. I'm not employed. I'm not employable, but I've done plenty of work with corporations, and I don't get looked at negatively. You know why? Because when I come in there, I'm bringing game and I'm bringing substance. So they're not looking at me negative. And even if they were African Violet, looking at me negative simply because I'm black and I'm a man in a suit, guess what? It doesn't matter how they look at me. All that matters is my performance. And did I do what I got hired to do? Number 1. Did the check clear? Number 2. Yes and yes. Okay, you can look at me however you want. How you look at me is not my business. Because when you say they're going to look at you negative, what I'm assuming you're referring to here is the way that certain people may think about you to themselves in their own heads just by looking at you. And here's the problem with that frame. There's another issue with the nonsense that you just said here. And this is another straw man, but this goes deeper than a straw man, is that the way another person looks at you, i.e. what you think they think about you, number 1 is not your business. Number 2 is impossible for you to ever know. Please keep liking the live, everybody on TikTok. Like the live. We got 17 minutes here. We're at 74,000. You can't read another person's mind. There is no human on this planet, myself, yourself, or any of you in here. It is impossible to read the thoughts of another person. So if you're black or white or male or female or gay or straight or whatever it is about you that you think other people are judging you just because of who you are on the outside. If you think that, understand you don't actually know what another person is thinking. So if you think people are judging you, that's because you're judging you and you're projecting your own insecurities on other people and then blaming it on them. See, this is the loser mindset that a lot of people have ingrained in themselves, and is not limited to black people. But since we're talking about black people here and you make this comment, then let's make it about black people. There's a lot of black people with a loser mentality that they say, well, white people are going to look at you negative just because you're black. How you know? You've never been white. You can't read the mind of a white person. So you're assuming what a white person is thinking. Where'd you get that from? You got it because you think it. You think that you are lesser than because you're black. So then when you see white people and they're looking at you, you're projecting your own thoughts about yourself, your own, what's the word I'm looking for? Your insecurities. And there's another word I'm looking for, but I'll come back to it in a second. Your insecurities about yourself, you're projecting those thoughts in your head onto other people. Then you carry yourself with those thoughts. People can read that energy coming off of you. And then they may indeed be talking to you or looking at you as if you are maybe a few levels below where you actually are, because your energy that you projected out there, they pick up on that energy and they respond to you based on your energy. But you can't read another person's thoughts. Your thoughts are reflected in the way you carry yourself. And if you carry yourself in a way that people tend to look at you as if you're a level 3 when you're actually a level 7, what are you doing that's causing them to look at you that way? That's something that you're doing. That's not something they're doing. So I'm actually glad you left this nonsense comment, because there's a lot of people who think the way that you express in this comment. Kuya bin Yasharo, thanks for the lightning bolt. But Heck said, I'm white. When I was young, I was watching in stores because of how I looked and acted. Yeah, in some stores, they'll watch everybody, or they'll just watch kids, or they'll watch kids who come in together. That happens to everybody. Mel said, living in Chicago, South Side, I'm always aware of my surroundings. Well, Mel, from what I hear about the South Side of Chicago, that's a smart thing to do. I don't live in Chicago. Shout out to Chicago. But that makes sense. We got 15 minutes here, folks. 20,000 more likes, please. All right, let me see if I can get through a few more of these. Let's see. Asian Princess, thanks for the follow. Lahek said, I don't trust crime statistics. They self-report and make themselves look good. Sometimes. And sometimes they do the opposite. James Center said, optic process in the brain and conscious. Michael Arato said, you are amazingly articulate. Bravo to you. Thank you, Michael. Kiara, thanks for the follow. User 670, thanks for the follow. Someone asked what I think about the Israel-Palestine conflict. I did a couple lives on it maybe 2 months ago. Jay Day says, should I pull all my money out the bank? No, I can't give you financial advice. I would say no, don't pull all your money out the bank. I'd say use more than one bank. And I would say talk to a licensed financial professional about what you should do with your money. That's what I said. Agent said, DC is supposed to be federalized. Well, some say. There's an argument about that. Joseph Red Feather said, nice suit. Thank you. Thanks for the follow. Cinnamon Star said, he said racism can't be proven. Yes, by the first definition of racism. If you look up racism in the dictionary, there's like 6 definitions. So the first definition is racism is a way of thinking. It's a belief that one race is superior to another. That's a way of thinking. You cannot prove what somebody else is thinking. Therefore, racism cannot be proven by that definition. Now, if you use definition 3, 4, 5, 6, there are others that are more tangible and measurable that you could call it racism. That's the reason why the word has less value, because people can use different versions of the same. They use the same word, but be talking about different definitions of the word. And then it becomes this whole argument about much more about semantics than it is actually about the point. That's what I said about racism. So you caught half of what I said, but you missed the rest of it. User said Google has new AI coming out. I'm pretty sure. They always got new AI. Everybody has new AI coming out all the time. Black Butterfly said, I'm a snitch. There you go. Tina Barbera said, I'm loving the common sense. Thank you. You're welcome. Craig, New York. Thank you. Katrina said, it's all over for the Dems. I wouldn't speak so soon. No, it's not. It's never over for either political party in America. One party will get some power, then the other one comes back. It's like a seesaw. It's never going to be just one side with all the power and the other one disappears. Never, ever, ever. Daniel Aker 972 said, literally no cops died. Yes, exactly. Katrina said only one from a heart attack. Yeah, and that was not even it wasn't because of what happened on January 6th. Zay said, fine, people who assaulted cops on January 6th were pardoned. Yes, well, some people who got sentences from January 6th did not assault a cop. They just did something else, maybe trespassing. But did some people who did assault get pardoned? Yes, they did. And I did a whole live on this topic as well. You can find it on my YouTube channel. I think it's perfectly fine that they got pardoned. Why? Because I think they all got overcharged, and the politically left-controlled government made a big, big show of these folks. Why? Because they want everybody else to see this is what happens if you come and threaten the people who make the laws, i.e. Congress, because that happened at the Capitol building. The Capitol building is where Congress is. That's where they approach. They approached Congress. They didn't approach the White House. They approached Capitol building. And the lawmakers, they said, we want to make sure we send a message to everybody out there. If y'all ever come knocking on our door again with your problems, this is what's going to happen to you. What we did to them, we will do to you. That was a signal. So they used those people to make an example of them. And Donald Trump undid that example by pardoning them. I don't have a problem with what he did. Peace Duck said Trump is doing a good job so far. All right, fair enough. Drama ain't free. Thanks for the follow. Peace Duck, thanks for the follow. Trey said he was convicted. Why didn't he get punished? Well, conviction is a punishment. I mean, it's on your record. And your punishment is decided by the presiding judge. That's how it works, Trey. That's the legal system in America. Mash, thanks for the follow. Let's see. Isaiah Reyes said, you only have to comply if you're not rich. I don't know about that. When you're getting arrested, they don't know if you're rich or not. Maybe later on they find out. Trey said, did they ever find the fake bill? I don't think the fake bill was lost. I think the cops immediately, if you look at the body cam footage, Trey, you can go watch the video. First thing the cops do is go in the store. And the guy talks about the bill. And then the guy says the guy who came in here with the fake bill, he's sitting in the car over there because they could see him. And then the cops walked over to the car and George was still sitting there in the car. Now, see, if George had been smart, he would have just drove off. When he kept sitting, he sat there and waited. He was a sitting duck for the cops. He should have just left. They never would have found him. He would have just drove off and go somewhere else, and he'd be fine. But I guess he wanted his $20 bill back. I don't know. But he should have fled the scene. None of that would have happened. Joni Suzanne, thanks for the follow. Live Free said, I'm 52, never had a problem with the cop, and I'm black. Well, there you go. I mean, it's anecdotal what you're saying. But, I mean, black people understand this. Black people always trying to push this just because you're black. The cops are just after you. Again, how do all of you live as long as you live that the cops are after you? They would have got you already. Arkeem said, I've been pulled over with multiple guns legal and never had a single issue enough with playing victim. There you go. Trey said, I don't think I like you. Fair enough, Trey. You got a right to that. It's a free country. Fab said, y'all really think this is about cracking down on crime? No, hell no, it's not about cracking down on crime. It's optics. I explained that at the beginning, Fab, so I don't think you were here at the beginning. All of this is optics, and this is what you must do when you're a politician. You must play the game of optics. Trump did not invent this game. He's just very good at it, but they all do it. KB Chubb, Ransom Hannah, thank you for the follow. Jay Day said, do you trust the government with your money? Hell no. Hell no, I don't trust the government with anybody's money. I don't trust the government with money, period. So no, Jay Day. Mr. Ohio said, if a woman dresses like a 304, also known as an HOE, that's for slang, for those of you who don't know what that is. If she dresses like a 304 and she's not a 304, how will people know the difference? Exactly. Well, you can know the difference if you actually talk to her and find out, and then you can maybe talk some sense into her, but that's a lot of work. Usually people judge on appearances. So what you're saying is correct. Cassie Mystic, thanks for the follow. Coco Dream said, wow, everyone's experience is not the same as yours, so we agree to disagree. Well, I just pointed that out. Anecdotal experiences do not prove arguments, Coco Dream. So me saying that I've never had an issue with a cop having a bad day is anecdotal. Someone just left a comment and said they got pulled over with multiple guns, but they were legal. They didn't have a problem. Anecdotal. Someone saying, hey, a cop pulled me over and then pulled me out the car and put me on the ground and handcuffed me and then let me go when they found out it was the wrong person. That's also anecdotal. Examples do not prove arguments. So anecdotes are examples. My personal example is not proof that the cops can't do something wrong. I didn't say that it was. I was very clear on that. I'm being clear on it again. You giving an example that cops do terrible things is also not proof the cops are bad. Neither the examples offset. Examples do not prove arguments. You prove arguments by getting the entire story, not just a handful of hand-picked examples that seem to fit whatever narrative you want to give. And again, I said that when I first made the point. Yannick said, can you explain why black people make up more than 50% of exonerations? Assuming that your data is correct, Yannick. Exonerations usually are referring to people you had to actually be convicted to be exonerated. So there are going to be more exonerations of people who are more often convicted. So there, I just explained it to you. More convictions equals more exonerations. And then right after that, Yannick says, bro is ducking comments for his life. Sorry, I just read your comment. I said at the beginning of the comments that I read from oldest to newest. So if I'm not reading your comment, it's simply because I haven't caught up to it yet. 1.7 like, thanks for the follow. Ruby said, sir, you are speaking straight facts. Thank you. We got 5 minutes here, folks. Can we get the likes up? We're at 94,000. Can we get the 100,000 likes, please? Wild Cherry Entertainment said, I love this page. Thank you. Margot Washington, thanks for the follow. P. Danny said, you have great communication skills. Do you have any political aspirations? Well, first of all, thank you. Secondly, no, I do not have political aspirations, but I don't know. I haven't been on the other side of that door. You know, from what I hear, when you get on the other side of the door, you get shown something. And the other side of the door, what I mean is if I actually got into politics and people who know the game start telling me how it really goes and what I could really get from being in politics, if I get on the other side of that door, maybe I'll see some things that change my mind. But I haven't been on the other side of the door. So from what I can see from here, no, I have no interest in being in politics. I don't like being fake to people. I don't like lying for a living. And the people I see in politics, they all seem very vapid. They seem very shallow, lacking substance. I don't like hanging with people who don't have substance. And if I worked in politics, I would have to hang with these people every day, work with them. Some of them would have more power than me, and I got to kind of kiss up to them. And it doesn't seem like a good thing to do for a living. So from where I stand today, no. But hey, somebody might show me something on the other side of that door that might change my situation or might change my thought process. I doubt it, but never say never. 1.7 said, when you put out negative energy, you get negative energy in return. That's right. It's the law of karma. Margot said, following, thank you for dropping gems. You're welcome. Thank you. All right, a few more comments here, folks. I think we might be able to get through them all, but let me not speak too soon. Actually, I think we might catch up. Nikki says, so does Elon has new AI? Yeah, he put out something new. Lee, thanks for the follow. It's called Grok. Sheila said, which of my books could I gift your son, verge of being hired in the big 100 law firm? He's going to get into a law firm. I say my book, The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. This is my most popular. Book's free, just cover the shipping. Third Day and the word book.com. Thirddaybook.com. As soon as I get done with the comments, Sheila, I'll flip the camera around so y'all can read the front of the book. But I would suggest this book right here. This is my most popular book. Thirddaybook.com. It's all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. Everybody goes through the third day. Katrina said January 6th was a setup. Some say. I get it. Official Shy Blee 705. Good morning. Katrina said Trump is still fighting the conviction. Well, he should. Anybody who gets convicted should try to fight it. Michelle said they had him in surveillance passing the bill. Yes, they did. James Center said, I'm black, made many mistakes. My fault, not the white man. That's the way to own it. David said, what does the empirical data say? Which data are you talking about? Domo said, man, speaking unfiltered logic. Thank you. Michelle said, Dre, they can't take your intelligence so they intact your clothes. Yeah, we call that the straw man. I've seen this happens every day. So I know how to deal with this stuff. Just the Mess said, yeah, you might change if you get into politics and you seem like an awesome person. Well, thank you, Just the Mess. Yeah, if I get into politics, I wouldn't get in it just from what we can see on the surface. Now, from what we can tell about politics, from my perspective, I would never get into politics. But like I said, if I get on the other side of that door, it might be a whole different world that they don't talk about on TV, which I think it is. I've even heard entertainers talk about this. So I've heard rappers say, like, once you get a certain level of success on your own, they invite you into a room and they have a meeting and they say, if you want to go even further than this, here's where you can go and here's what you can do and here's what it's going to take. And they kind of let you know what it's going to take if you want to go higher, real high. And you got to decide, do you want to or do you not want to? And if you want to, you can get really big, but there's a cost. And if you don't want to, then you pretty much stay where you're at or your career slowly dwindles away. So you look at the music industry and you draw your own conclusions. But a lot of people talk about that. And politics, I believe, is the exact same way. Alfred Barker said, don't go to the other side of the door. I judge you as a good man right now. Well, thank you. Well, see, I don't have anything compromising me right now. So everything I'm saying here is because I actually want to say it, whether people agree or disagree. Now, if I get into politics, when you get into politics, there are people with way more power than you who can control your career. So if I get into politics, there are people who would control my career. And if I want to keep that career, I have to listen to those people. Like, that's how it works. Anytime you step into bureaucracy, the people with the power will tell you what it is. You think is going to go the way you think is going to go, but it's actually going to go the way they say it's going to go. If you want to see an example of this, look at Trump in his first term. He thought he was going to do certain things, couldn't do them. He came in the second term, he brought his own people. First time he tried to use their people, and that shit didn't work. So he had to come in with his own people, and he still got to fight. Crofts said, I love your bluntness. Keep it up. Appreciate you. Thank you. Michael FVD said, thoughts on money in general. Go get some. That's my thoughts on money in general. You got it, Sheila? All right. ThirdDayBook.com is how you get this book. ThirdDayBook.com. Domo, thanks for the follow. Jess said, politics are way darker than what we see. I believe that. Yes, I agree with that. I've heard some things about politics. I don't know anything. I'm a firm believer you don't really know something till you live it. You got to actually do it to really know it. But from what I've heard, politics is not what we see on TV. The stuff we see on TV is window dressing, folks. The stuff y'all see when y'all see politics and politicians talking in press conferences and even the shit that Trump posts, all of that is window dressing. They do that to keep the everyday person occupied. That's all it is. Just keep you occupied. Same way you give your kid a toy so that they just be quiet, or you give your teenagers the iPad so they sit down and be quiet. That's what politicians put on the internet. That's all window dressing to keep you thinking that they're working for you. The real shit that they're doing, they don't put on TV. The real stuff is happening. You got to be on the inside. And that's when the people talk about the deep state and the swamp and all that. That's that shit. Now, I don't know anything about that. We hear about it, but we don't know. Now, if I get into politics, then I will find out. And here's the thing. You find out and then you go talking, something happens. Kobe Bryant, Jeff Epstein, what was the dude from Black Panther? Cedric Bosewick, whatever his name. Chad Bosewick. Chad Bosewick. People who they pass away and is like, why'd that person pass away? What happened to them? Obama's chef? I've heard things. I'm not reporting this, but I've heard things that these people who pass away, and it seems like, why did they pass away? Kobe in that helicopter? Those things, it wasn't just random. It wasn't some random happenstance. That's what I've heard. I'm not reporting it. Y'all got to do your own research. I look around on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff. So when it comes to Kobe, I will tell y'all this. When it comes to Kobe, I saw this video yesterday, or I listened to it. You don't really have to look at it. You listen to it. I was listening to this dude. This dude has a podcast called Apollo. This dude's name is Apollo. Y'all heard this guy? And the guy he had on there, his name was Bishop Larry Gators. Hey, son. How you doing?
I'm sad. I was throwing things.
You were throwing things?
Yeah.
Did mommy get mad at you?
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy is named Apollo the Original. Here's his YouTube channel. I never heard of this dude before, but I saw a clip from his podcast like last week. And there was this guy claiming that the Kobe situation there was something done. The Kobe Bryant. Remember he passed away in a helicopter about 5 years ago? That was not the helicopter just randomly crashed or the guy got lost in the clouds. Like, no, that was the official story, not the real story. Again, not reporting this. And this guy his name is Bishop Larry Gator. He was on Apollo's podcast. And here's the title: The Assassination of Kobe Bryant, Black Boule Secret Society, and is longer. I can't read the rest. This guy's name is Apollo the Original on YouTube. I listened to part 1 and part 2. These both about 3 hours long. Now, the thing about me is I can listen to, if you speak native English, I can listen to you on 2x speed. So I listened to both of them yesterday while I was doing other things. Y'all listen to it and draw your own conclusions. I'm not telling you what to think. Y'all listen to it, draw your own conclusions. But the dude was making a lot of sense. And he wasn't just talking about Kobe. Kobe was like 10 minutes. He was talking about the Black Boule. Y'all don't know what that is. He was mentioning names. He mentioned a bunch of names of black people in the Boule. Go listen to it. He mentioned a bunch of names that y'all know. He talked about the transatlantic slave trade. He talks about the J people. He talks about Israel. He talks about the Saudis. He talked about money. He talked about Wall Street. He talked about the Democrats. He talks about race, black and white. He talks about Nike. He talks about athletes. He talks about a whole lot of things over the course of those 2. Y'all go listen to it and draw your own conclusions. But dude is going Super deep. He's going like 10 levels deep. What dude was saying, this guy, his name is Bishop Larry Gator. I never heard this man before. He's a black guy. He's probably about 60. The stuff he was saying, you got to listen to it twice. Like I could go back and listen to the whole thing all over again, the whole 6 hours, and hear things I didn't hear the first time. Like he was going through stuff. And he was breaking down language and words, and this doesn't mean this, and this letter never existed. Like the letter J didn't exist. Everything was a Y, and they introduced the letter J and changed Jesus to Jesus, and let me not even do it. Y'all gotta listen to it. Let him say it. He explained it way better than me. Again, go to his name is Apollo the Original on YouTube. The video says the assassination of Kobe Bryant is this one right there. His name is Apollo the Original on YouTube. He's just the host. The guest is named Larry Gator. The host hardly even talks. Like this video is 2.5 hours long. The host talks for like 2 minutes. Dude talks the whole time, but he's very articulate and he explains everything. Y'all go listen to it and decide on your own. Again, Apollo the Original is on YouTube. Yeah, the Kobe thing, because he was talking about Christianity as well, this guy. And I have some friends who are devout Christians. And I sent this to a friend of mine. So if you look at my phone right now, you see on WhatsApp, you see that WhatsApp with the 10 notifications right there? See that 10 right there for WhatsApp? My friend who's a devout Christian, I sent her the link to that video and said, you ever heard of this guy? Because it reminded me of her. She's a devout Christian, go to church every week, reads the Bible, all that stuff. Because he talks about Christianity a lot. More than he talks about Kobe, he's talking about Christianity. And she started listening to it or watching it, and she just started going off telling me stuff. And when I mentioned Kobe, she said, okay. She said, I knew about Kobe before. We never talked about this. She said, I knew about Kobe. I knew that he didn't just pass away regularly. That's what she said, not reporting this. And then she just started going and going and going. And she sent me all these messages overnight. I didn't even read them yet. You see that notification there? That's stuff that she sent me I didn't even read yet. Because now she's going off talking about this stuff. But dude goes super deep. I'm talking 10 levels deep. So y'all listen to that on your own time. So all that being said, folks, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. So some of you heard about that, the Kobe thing. Yeah, so there's a whole lot, folks. Rome said, how to counter Socratic method to my professor. Answer the questions. That's how you counter the Socratic method. Answer the questions. That's the whole point of it, is that they're trying to help you learn by asking you questions instead of giving you information, which is what they're supposed to be doing anyway. You should be happy. Rome X, be happy your professor is using the Socratic method so you can actually learn. And he's trying to teach you how to think. So be happy. Thank your professor. Go shake his hand. So everybody, I'll see y'all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, topic to be determined. Go to the links in my profile. You want to learn more about working with me. You want to get a copy of this book, Third Day, go to thirddaybook.com. The book is free. Just cover the shipping. Go to the link in my profile. There's a page that has links to all the books of mine that you can get for free. Go to that link. Get this book, thirddaybook.com. Yes. Everybody have a great Monday. We out of here.
What?
Huh?
Are you coming?
You want me to come out there?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait.
Okay. Let me put it into my streams.